This is Pilot News, covering Principia College and beyond. On campus, off campus, news that affects our Principia community. Campus news, sports, people, events. We go where the news is, bringing you fair and full coverage. From the Templin TV studio, this is your Pilot News.
Hello and welcome to the inaugural broadcast of Pilot News. I'm Jessie Sanders alongside David Bates. Kayla Gillum has sports and Christy Coddington has a special segment report. Here are this week's top stories.
The Mammoth class is in full swing this quarter, but they're taking a break from their usual hangout at the pit outside Rackham Court. Instead, the class has moved indoors to work on the Mammoth's skull. Jessie gives us the latest on the Mammoth they call Benny.
After 3 years of anticipation, geology professor Janice Truergy, with help from her husband and student Christian Mays, finally excavated our mammoth's skull from the pit.
The skull block is really the key piece of this animal right now, and so it's pretty neat to be able to work on it. I mean, it's been sitting out there for 3 years and we haven't touched it, so I'm really pleased to finally get to look at these tusks and see what condition they're in and how long they are and that sort of thing.
Although Janice says there are other bones yet to be discovered, this quarter's class will devote their time to uncovering the plaster jacket which Janice wrapped around the block before transporting it to the garage. The class begins by removing the wooden handmade walls protecting the block, and then they take to their projects.
And you have to dive right in to do everything. You have to just start in right away. You don't really get a whole lot of instruction, so you are forced to learn right away in this class.
Haley and others around her are carefully working on removing the matrix from the right tusk and one of the mammoth's femurs. Although the class requires a quick and alert worker, students say the pace of removing the thick layers of dirt feels like an eternity, but they also notice progress.
Looking back at it, I can tell progress. A lot of progress has been made. It's just as I'm working, it feels to be like it's moving very slow.
Despite the slow pace, Janice says the class's goals is to get as much uncovered as possible, while also being patient and working cautiously. The bones and tusk of the mammoth have been covered by layers of soil for nearly 10,000 years and are very delicate to touch. The students have already learned how to make boot-var, which is a liquid of different viscosities made out of alcohol and a special powder. Once the bones and tusk are exposed, boot-var is then poured on top of them to help them harden and keep preserved. The process of discovering and extracting fossils is not easy, but this class says it's well worth it because it's not every day you come across an animal from the Ice Age, especially here at Principia College. Well, as you can see, this is a very exciting time for the geology students here on campus. They have finally extracted Benny's skull from the pit, and it is here, safe and secure, in the biology garage. Stay tuned. We will definitely hear more about the mammoth progress. This is Jessie Sanders for PC News. One renovation on campus is about halfway finished. Students and other volunteers have been working all quarter on the 115-year-old cabin at Eliestoun. They've taken off the clay shingles in order to piece together a new roof. They've also been painting and sanding. The goal is the creation of a quaint study destination for students. David has more from Eliestoun.
The final board is hammered in on the roof of the Eliestoun cabin. The group of volunteers are just one step closer to making the small house a quiet room for students to study or for professors to use as part of their class. Head student organizer Phil Brault says he hopes the quaint cabin will be something like what the writer's cabin is now.
I also been out to the Eliestoun area here. I think it's just really beautiful, and sometimes come out here, lay out a blanket, and do a little homework, and thought, oh, well, maybe we could kind of turn that into something like the writer's cabin.
Brault brought up the idea to student government, which is helping to fund the project. The work gone into it, however, has become more like a community service project, enticing students like freshman Hillary Austin to come help.
It's important to me personally because it's fun to do like carpentry work, but it's important too because to have more people come out here. I think that it's good to get people out to Eliestoun.
She and other workers have spent the past month removing shingles, fixing the roof, painting the exterior, and adding new trim. On the inside, the floor will be treated and a small fireplace will be installed. W.R.E.N.S says continued support, both with interest and finances, will make the cabin a unique destination on campus.
It has a lot of potential and just needs kind of a champion and someone who's willing to fund the project.
It's expected to be completed and usable by the end of this quarter. And if things go according to plan, then soon students and professors will have another quiet, rustic place in which to study on campus. This is David Bates for Pilot TV News.
Students returned this quarter to find scaffolding surrounding the Mistake House. Renovations are underway on the building. The first structure erected on campus, built in 1931, to test materials and the unique construction methods Maybeck envisioned. It wasn't meant to last 75 years. The remodeling effort includes work on the roof, the windows of several different styles, and the door. Although some interior repairs are being done, there are no plans at present to renovate the inside for active use. The work is being done now because of the critical need for it and because a donor was found to fund it. The project will continue for several more weeks. Homebrewed harmonies filled the air Friday evening at Eliestoun for the Homegrown Festival. Various musical groups performed, made up of students and one biology professor. Rain has kept the event from being held at Eliestoun for the past 2 years, but this year students came out with the blankets and sat under a clear blue sky. Buckhouse numbers were also on the scene, serving up burgers and other treats. Senior Adam Shoemaker, one of the festival organizers, says he likes hosting the event because it shows off the community's musical talent. The next festival will be during spring quarter, hopefully back at Eliestoun if Mother Nature cooperates.
In other art news, the theater production this fall is entitled W.R.E.N.S, which stands for Women's Royal Naval Services and features an all-female cast. Rehearsals are underway for the play, which takes place in Scotland and revolves around the last 2 days of World War II. The plot focuses on a variety of issues, some of which include relationships, freedom as women, abortion, and the fear of what lies ahead. Many of Principia's well-known theater faces are back to brighten the stage once again, but some new students have also made the cast. The ladies have been busy with nightly rehearsals and other activities that require them to remain in character for hours at a time. W.R.E.N.S will be staged the 8th week of the quarter.
A shelter in Alton is one of hundreds of sites around the country housing evacuees from Hurricane Katrina. Last weekend, Principia College hosted a barbecue at the shelter. Volunteer students lent a hand and an ear to victims still suffering from the effects of the devastating storm. Ryan Lochner went along and filed this report.
The great smell of cheeseburgers, baked beans, and fresh salad filled the air of the Alton Health Center as students and evacuees gathered together to share food and stories alike. Students were taken in as they heard first-hand experiences from the Katrina evacuees. Many have stories of waist-high water, scrounging for food, and finally being evacuated by National Guards, leaving everything they had owned behind. They have been here for over 2 weeks now, and some have already made plans to return home within just a few days. Regular updates from the shelter and internet sources provide the evacuees with information about their neighborhoods and when it will be safe for them to return home. Mostly, they are waiting for electricity and running water to be restored before it is safe to return and rebuild. Laughter and smiles were sure to be found here at the barbecue. For every story of loss, there was an equal showing of support from our nation as a whole. Evacuees were met here in Alton with open arms, and many were surprised at the amount of support they had received. One woman said she would need a U-Haul to bring all her new belongings home with her. Olin from New Orleans shares with us his experiences of how he ended up in Alton.
They told us when we was in flight. We didn't know until we was actually in the area. They told us where we was going to be arriving.
One man was, for the first time, getting a chance to speak with anyone about Katrina, because since he was evacuated from home, he has not been able to find anyone who was able to speak Spanish with him until Principia students came to this barbecue. Wanda, from just outside the French quarters in New Orleans, shared her experiences of what it was like firsthand to walk through waist-high water.
Well, in one part of the house, the roof and the bedroom blew off, but at least we were okay there. The water was, you know, not so high there.
Spirits are high and food has been good here at the Alton Health Center. This is Ryan Lochner reporting for Pilot TV.
During each broadcast of Pilot News, we hope to bring you a brief in-studio segment that expands on a significant campus story. The format will vary, but typically it will be a panel discussion or interview. This week, Christy Coddington has two guests who found themselves in the middle of perhaps the biggest news story of the year.
Thanks, Jessie. The picnic in Alton wasn't the only Principia connection to the Hurricane Katrina relief effort. Shortly after the storm struck, former Prin College professor Rick Dearborn spotted a posting on the internet. It was an urgent call for hundreds of amateur radio operators to lend a hand in New Orleans. Rick started making some calls himself around the Prin community, and within 3 days he had gathered a team of 11 Prinos. They loaded it into 3 vans and quickly headed south to the Mississippi, where the group was assigned to hard-hit Hancock County. 2 members of that 11-person team have joined us live in studio today to talk about their adventure. Professor Ben Brown is chairman of the physics department here at the college, and Tom Brownell is a freshman in Anderson. Ben, let's start with you. How did you first happen to get involved in the efforts?
Well, Rick Dearborn and I had been in touch about ham radio and emergency efforts for about a year. We actually got the Prin College Ham Radio Club reactivated last year in response to a call of the Homeland Security Chief, Tom Ridge's mission to set up emergency ham radio communications within any given area. So we set up a station here and also one on the upper school campus in response to the perceived need for disaster-related communications.
Could you tell our viewers a little bit more about what ham radio really is?
Well, when you think of ham radio, you think of some old guy with a bunch of big radios, and that's the way it used to be. However, the technology has moved ahead as it has in most areas. So we use handheld, high-frequency or very high-frequency units. We also still have some large radios that will communicate long distances, but point-to-point and shorter communications with relaying via transmitter-receiver combination station is the way to go now. And it's universal. Any ham can talk to any ham if you go into a certain area. That's the advantage of it in a disaster region.
Now, Tom, what about you? You, being a first-quarter freshman, had just started school when you got the phone call. Did you have any hesitation before jumping on board?
It was a little challenging missing the first 3 out of 6 days of college, but I knew this was an experience that I wanted to have and something I wanted to help out with. And so my professors were all very supportive, and everything just worked very harmoniously.
Do you feel like you have a lot of personal connections now with people in that area that you might keep in contact with?
There's one family in particular, and I helped them on a number of occasions. They were camped at the VFW site, which was the former VFW hall, what was left of it. And I helped them with a number of different things, and they invited me to dinner on the last day, and I have their address, and it was just really gratifying. The matriarch of the family was 77 years old, and her husband is 87, and they were all dear, all the 3 generations that I got to know.
I'm sure that both of you had to use Christian Science a lot while you were down there. Tom, are there any examples that you can remember?
Well, I think more than anything, just the overall sense of having that metaphysical connection within our group really helped to keep us calm and on task and focused on why we were down there, and remind us that we're there to communicate and communicate God's Word.
Ben, did you find that a lot of people were wondering what Principia was and asking about it when you explained where you were coming from?
Well, we did run into one person, I guess, that knew Principia, and that was the connection. But make no mistake about it, any people that were helped by us saw the name Principia. We had T-shirts with Principia on the shirt. And I was asked, what is Principia? And I would say, you know, college for Christian scientists in Illinois near St. Louis. But the fact that we were a team there, that we were a Principia team, and we were praying each day and working through things on a metaphysical basis, I think was a special added feature about what we did, and I have some wonderful emails from people that I worked with at the point of distribution that showed that we were effective in our work.
Well, thank you, Ben and Tom, for sharing your stories with us. I'm sure that many of you will have questions for Ben and Tom as well. It's been so inspiring to hear how the spirit of Principia has touched the people far from the campus boundaries. Jesse and David, back to you.
Thanks, Christy. Kayla Gillum has joined us with the Sports Report. Kayla?
Thanks, Jesse. The Prin baseball team turned Big Macs into Big Bucks down at the Alton McDonalds near the bridge on Tuesday night. Mike Bold, the manager and son of the owner, pledged 20% of the revenue earned between 4 and 8 p.m. That amounted to a cool $500. Bold has gotten to know several Prin coaches and wanted to do his part to support the team. A steady stream of faculty, staff, and students visited the Golden Arches to help support the promotion. Baseball players stood on the sidewalk waving signs and others greeted people at the door. The $500 will go towards the team's March trip to Florida. Coach Steve Stock says he hopes to get Mike Bold up to campus for a game next spring and have him throw out a ceremonial first pitch. There's a full slate of sports on tap this weekend in conjunction with homecoming. This afternoon at 4 o'clock, there's a cross-country race and also a women's soccer game. At 7 p.m., volleyball will play host to McMurray in Hay Fieldhouse. Tomorrow, there's both a bike ride and fun run to support global friendship. The bike ride begins in Elsa at the River Road parking lot at 8:30. For the fun run, meet at the halftime shed by the football field at 10, following the fieldside picnic at 11:30. Watch the football team play Crown College. Then top off your day of athletics with a soccer match. The men play Webster University at 4. If you see large older gentlemen on campus this weekend, you may be looking at an ex-Prin football player. Gridiron stars of the past are gathering for a reunion. At a banquet tonight, the Prin College All-Century football team will be announced. And tomorrow, everyone is invited to the football field at noon for the groundbreaking ceremony for the Coach Crafton Training Center. See you there.
Man, David, it sounds like a crazy weekend's coming up.
I know. I remember homecoming last year out at the pub patio. I really danced then.
Yeah, I was there. I won't miss it this year. That's all for today. For David Bates, Kayla Gillum, Christy Coddington, and the rest of the PCTV News team, this is Jesse Sanders inviting you to join us 2 weeks from today for another edition of the Pilot News. Good afternoon, everyone.